Hello, and welcome to the Everyday Business Problems Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Chrysler. Each episode, we talk to business owners and leaders to learn about their story, their business, the challenges they've overcome, and the challenges they still face. You'll hear fresh insights, real talk, and get inspiration to grow your business. Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining me today on the Everyday Business Problems Podcast. So excited to be welcoming Deb Coviello to the podcast today. Deb is an advisor, author, podcast host, and founder of Illumination Partners, a consulting firm for CEOs navigating change. Deb is a trusted partner to C-suite leaders and brings more than 25 years of experience in strategy in quality and operational excellence roles, combined with her 20 years in the flavors and fragrance industry to support her clients as they work to identify, assess, and solve the issues that are preventing their businesses from growing. Certified as a Lean and Six Sigma Black Belt in process improvement, she has developed powerful programs devoted to helping CEOs identify emerging leaders, understanding people are your greatest tool in your toolbox. Deb is a board member of Women in Flavor and Fragrance Commerce and an avid curler with the Cincinnati Curling Club. She's a mother of three and resides in Cincinnati, Ohio, with her husband, Dan, of 32 years. Deb, thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Everyday Business Problems Podcast.
David, it is my pleasure and a sincere thank you for knowing you and giving me an opportunity to share some insights with you and your audience. So thank you.
Yeah, I am so excited to get into this conversation. We've known each other for quite some time now, and we have a very similar history and background. And you're just somebody that I could talk to literally for hours. So excited that you're on the podcast today and we get to jam a little bit.
Yeah, me as well. Again, we could go on. We have similar war stories as well as some amazing successes helping people in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into it. I want to talk about you being an author and the latest book that you've written, The CEO's Compass. Can you talk a little bit about what the inspiration was behind the book and maybe some details in terms of takeaways that are throughout the book?
Yeah, thank you, David, again for asking that question. The CEO's Compass, your guide to get back on track, was the playbook that I never had when moving through and navigating my career. I worked hard, grit, getting my certifications, moving up in corporate, but not having great role models, not having leaders that mentored or coached me. So through tough times, the School of Hard Knocks, I eventually got to be, vice president of quality and operational excellence, but I had to struggle. So it is my opportunity to distill my stories and share my lessons learned so other career professionals don't have to struggle so much. But there's a part two. I had so many thoughts. I had been so active on social media. And somebody said to me one day, and this is great feedback, I love your writing, Deb, but I don't know what you stand for. Oh, oh my, that was really great feedback. So I realized all of my ideas about how to navigate business and your career needed to be distilled into one package, one approach and resource for leaders to be able to get themselves, their businesses, and their careers back on track. So there's a lot in it, but it is centered around the compass, peace of mind, and seven compass points in my approach.
I really love that, how you've kind of laid it out in the book. And to your point, it's challenging, right? It's challenging to grow throughout your career. It's challenging when you don't necessarily have that roadmap or have something to keep you on track. And to your point again, there really is a lot of trial and error with it. You can have wonderful mentors throughout your career and help to guide you, but having a central or a key resource available to you that will talk about some of those points. Maybe if you'd like, we can talk through some of the 7 points that you lay out in the book, because I think it's really appropriate for this conversation to talk about it at a high level.
So I sincerely appreciate this and the opportunity. And what differentiates my book from some great pieces of resource and work? So for instance, there is a book called Traction. It sets up an operating system for businesses that are growing and need that structure. You can look at it from an operational excellence perspective. How do we do problem solving in a DMAIC mindset, or how do we make ourselves more efficient, leveraging lean methodology? All of those initiatives or programs are necessary for business. But what happens if you've been a leader that have been practicing all of these business systems, and then the environment changes? People change, there's an integration, there's new leadership. And all of a sudden, you're not getting the same results. This is terrible for a rock star who's always done really well in business. But when the environment changes, you lose your confidence. And so, what this book does is it starts with personal development, going back to the fundamentals. Why are you a leader and how do you lead? That's chapter 1. And I say, don't pass go to the compass points until you understand yourself and check yourself. Because if we can't identify what makes us tick, how do we want to lead, and why are we leading, anything that I throw at you later on is just not going to stick. But regardless of the initiative of a business, it's rapidly going through change. I have found 7 compass points that lead you to the 8th one, peace of mind, are the differences I see in businesses. So first of all, let's start with the northernmost compass point, peace of mind. One of the things I have found is most leaders think they are in pursuit of results, but in actuality, they are in pursuit of peace of mind. And the difference is results are what you drive each day, each week, each month. You drive your people to get a particular result, and you high five when you meet the objectives of the business. And then what happens the next month when you let certain things slide? The wheels are falling off the bus in the other areas of your business. All of a sudden, you start beating the people, having more meetings to try to get back on track to a particular result. And it's not sustainable. That's what's happening with these businesses that are growing. Peace of mind is when you have a well-defined purpose, you've addressed the other compass points, and you focus on people's capability to meet the purpose. All of a sudden, you get this overwhelming feeling of you seeing your people performing. They're starting to speak the purpose of the business. They are proactively identifying what gaps they need to get to true peace of mind. All of a sudden, you start seeing a high performing team, and a leader will know what peace of mind looks like. That's what we're striving for, not month to month, quarter to quarter results. The 7 compass points, which I can go into now, are starting to identify those things I have seen leaders off of track despite the best business systems. Keep going.
Yeah, no, I really love all of that. And yeah, I would like you to go into just the 7 points. But my takeaway from all of what you just said, and it's so spot on, but bears repeating, is the fact that businesses are always changing, right? Because they're made up of people. And so whether you're talking internally or those external connections that you have, right? Your clients, your customers, all of those interactions and sets of people are driving that consistent change. So to your point, even the most successful businesses that are set up and systemized, it is the ever-changing landscape of the people that are ultimately what you need to get back on track as you are on this journey towards peace. And I really like that because, again, I think a lot of leaders and owners, management teams do look at it and think that they are constantly striving to deliver the results. And again, that's on the way to having peace of mind and ultimately getting to this place where you are not only identifying, but really managing and driving, or putting the bounds on the amount of change that's happening in your organization at any given point in time. So I really love that.
And so this plays also into the work that you do. You work with small and medium-sized entities for which you need to put some structure in place in order to be scalable and sustainable. And yes, you have to have grounded results or metrics to be able to measure if we are meeting the business objectives. But what's important is to look at the human interaction with those systems and those platforms and tools. And so let's go to the next 2 compass points around the northernmost compass point of peace of mind. You have purpose and performance, and they play together. It's on the strategic side of the compass. You first have to have a well-defined purpose for yourself. and your business, because a leader needs to be able to articulate where are we going. The performance compass point is not the results, as I explained it in the book. The performance is the gaps between your people's capability, capacity, and confidence to achieve that purpose. And if during those discussions you realize people's capabilities are not there, the leading indicators of what you should be focusing on are to close capability, capacity, and confidence gaps. And when you close the people gaps to achieve the purpose, again, they play together, you can get to peace of mind. So often we measure people in terms of, did you get that report done? Did you finish this initiative? And you never really actually measure the leading indicators. So I'll keep going.
Yeah.
Another strategic element. This is the West and the East compass point. I have gone into organizations that are acquiring other organizations, and we work really fast to develop people, process, and tools to integrate organizations. And that works on paper. But what about the people? Have we talked to those new people? Have we taken the time to understand the rich culture that we're bringing into our organization? Have we taken a look, and that's the past compass point, have we looked at pride? And pride is a little bit different. I talk about pride. You can feel and see pride in a person, but that's the intersection of their humanity and their intellectual property. And I didn't say subject matter expertise, but if you are a leader coming into a situation with new players that you don't really know, take the time to ask, what were they special about in the past life? What were their gifts? What intellectual property did they develop or bring to the organization? Because in doing so, you respect them, and you never know when you may need that knowledge. If you pass go and don't even ask that, at times of chaos or the organization's changing, those people are not going to step up and share their gifts. So by doing so and spending that time in the story about integrating an organization, when it got crazy, because I took the time to respect the people, they went to bat. They put in extra time in order to be successful in that integration versus folding their arms and saying, well, you told me, I told you so, or you never even asked me. Very,
Yeah.
very, very important for leaders to recognize that when they come into teams or are forming teams.
Yeah, 100%. And I got to interrupt you just for a second there because again, love everything that you're talking about here. And I've seen it from my own experience in terms of that acquisition component. And oftentimes in kind of my past life, as I call it, I was the person that was new, so to speak. I didn't know the people, I didn't know the products in a lot of cases as we were acquire a new facility. And that was for me the unlock that I needed to say, okay, going into these environments, you really do have to spend the time to get to know people, to get to understand what they're bringing to the table. And as I now kind of utilize my experience in exactly what you're saying to talk to other business owners and leaders, I talk about this collective brain power component because to me, that's what you're really talking about is harnessing the collective brain power that people bring into your organization. And that can be from an acquisition, that could be a new team member coming in. But how powerful is it from the standpoint of really engaging with a person on your team and in the team in its entirety to drive the progress forward? I mean, it's you know, I've said often the only reason I was successful was because of the people and that I learned how to capture and harness the collective brain power of all the people that were doing the work day in and day out. So that's just, I had to jump in there with that because I just love that particular section of the book and how you've laid it all out. It's so, so important and missed by many, many leadership teams in business today.
And you and I are operations type people. We are hardwired to do and get results very quickly. But it takes a little bit discipline in a leader to actually slow down before speeding up. I'm currently in a new consulting assignment right now, and I am filling up my calendar with meeting all the stakeholders. And at the end of every conversation, they said, Deb, we know we have a complex system. We're happy you're here. And just give me a call anytime. I'm here to help you. Ooh, Talk about, like you say, the collective brain power. I need to build an arsenal in order to be able to do the work and execute really fast. So love that. Shall
Yeah.
I go on to the rest
Yeah.
of the compass
Yeah,
points?
please.
Thank you.
This is awesome. So great. And for everybody that's listening out there, you've got to get a copy of Deb's book. It's really fantastic. She's just hitting the high points here, and it's really tremendous. So yes, please continue.
So, for those of you who have gone through maybe DMAIC methodology, operational excellence, we talk about how to improve processes, people, process, and tools. Well, on the bottom of my compass in the Southwest, Southeast, and South, I have people, process, and platforms. Notice there's a common theme here with P's. But anyway, people in the traditional sense is write a procedure, train the people, you'll get the desired result. Mm. What I find missing in organizations is proper mentoring and having one on ones with your people on whatever frequency is necessary. We're so busy doing and living day to day. And in that hamster wheel, we don't spend the time having conversations about personal development on strategic initiatives and getting results and making sure we're in service to each other. So that chapter is all about if we don't have a program to mentor, coach people, start now. Very powerful. The next compass point is process. Now, it's not the SOP, the procedure, the training that you need to do to get people to perform. It is the process of humans interacting with humans. So if you're a leader looking at your team and they're not performing, they're not high performers, there's issues, there's barriers on the team, this chapter is dedicated to helping people navigate the complexity of interfacing with people. So providing feedback, understanding the diversity, how to have difficult conversations. Oh my, I wish I was taught how to do that, but I'm sharing my best advice. And finally, if the individuals are starting to perform, they are really good at having one on ones, they've mastered interactions, all of a sudden in business, these become your high performers and they start getting a lot of work. And then ultimately they start failing because we haven't given them the right platform or tools to anchor good decision logic, how to be accountable on a day to day, prioritizing their work. Otherwise, these high performers start failing. So that chapter is fully dedicated to the accountability of managing their daily work and keeping them to move forward without being burnt out. So that's the 7 compass points, all human-centric, people-based. That's the common thread amidst any changes that get you off track.
Oh, well, thank you for diving into that, Deb, because again, there's so many amazing parts of what you've laid out and centered around that, people and change aspect. And I think that's one of the reasons that you and I get along so well is that people first mindset and making sure that we have the right things in place to support what they're trying to do. Because as I've said many of times, by and large, most people want to wake up, go to work, whatever capacity that is, contribute, be recognized for their contributions, and that doesn't always mean financially. It means that yes, you have to pay people appropriately, but more often it is about recognizing and giving people credit and saying, you've done a really fantastic job. Thank you for contributing in this specific way to what we're trying to do here. And utilizing a tool like your book to get yourself on track when you are in that leadership role or ownership role is just it's just a tremendous resource. So again, thanks for going into that into some detail for me.
No, I appreciate it. And again, this didn't happen overnight. This was many, many years in the making that I bring forward and help other people not take many years to get to where they need to go.
And that's kind of the point, right? There's obviously two ways that you can go about improving things within your life, within your business. And that is, the way that it's worked out for the two of us, and that's through trial and error, and more than 20 years of doing these types of things and learning, because there wasn't a resource available. I had to chuckle when you made the comment about having difficult conversations, because nobody walks you through those types of things. I remember there was a guy that I worked with who, was going for a management degree in college. And I never forget, I've told this story before, but it's always a great one. I never forget, there was a situation out on the shop floor, and, he came into my office and was like, "Hey, Dave, this is going on, and what do I do? How do I approach this situation?" It was regarding some, hygiene habits with some of the people on the floor. And it was just like, what, they didn't teach you this, in your college, curriculum. And it's like, no, they don't teach you these real world moments and how to connect with people in a very meaningful way, and how to talk about really difficult tasks, or really difficult things with people. So, again, having a tool like your book to get people through that and to get them in the right frame of mind is tremendous. So, Deb, let's maybe switch gears slightly, and I'd love to talk about some kind of action points, maybe mindset help, because one of the things I think a lot of leaders struggle with is this: when do I ask for help? I'm supposed to be the leader. I'm supposed to know all of the things that are going on and how to drive change forward. I'm supposed to be the one with the answers. So how am I going to identify when's it okay to ask for help? So I'd love to talk about that a little bit with you, because I feel like it's almost a stigma, for a leader to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I could use some help here." What's your thoughts on that?
So, Dave, I failed miserably on that point, especially in my last role. I had somebody come up to me, actually was a dotted line boss, and says, "Deb, here's a resume. Here's a person that is highly successful in the area of crisis management. Why don't you give them a call?" And it was a gentle way of just suggesting I should reach out to that person. And I never did. And I will tell you, ultimately, there were a set of circumstances that ultimately resulted in a lot of crisis and a lot of activity. And while I did sweat with the team to work through that, I probably could have done something differently and asked for some help and advice. So, my advice for people is, first of all, be kind to yourself. You don't have to have all the answers, but by being a leader, you have to be resourceful. So, had I asked for help sooner, I might still be working for that organization. Now, don't beat yourself up. When you start having that uneasy feeling in your heart, in your chest, in your head, wherever you get those feelings of uncertainty, first of all, that's so powerful. You feel it. If you didn't feel it, you need some other gauge to indicate when you just don't have the answers. And let's go back to what I talked about. I said, I just started a new consulting gig. I am meeting with every possible resource, stakeholder, subject matter expert in the organization that I can reach out to, because the next time I start getting that uneasy feeling of, I don't know how to do this, I'm not sure in my approach, I have an arsenal of people to reach out to and ask the question. You have to change your mindset. It is powerful to recognize when you feel uneasy. It is powerful to ask for help, because ultimately people will be appreciative that you asked for their advice, and then ultimately acknowledge for leveraging their advice and moving forward. And the faster that we can get over ourselves and move people through the decision process of just reaching out for help, the faster they're going to make a better decision. And again, I am grateful for those leaders who have reached out to me when they realize they're about to embark on something new, different, or never done before. And that's how we work together, with my advisory services. So trust your gut. It's a
Yeah.
good indication of when you need help.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing I'll tell people is that, you know, it's okay to make mistakes and to make bad decisions, and to own all of those things, right? So, oftentimes, what I'll hear from a business owner, a leader, somebody on a leadership team is something to along the lines of, well, I've tried that in the past. I've tried to engage with people and it didn't really go anywhere, or I, made this decision and it didn't work out. And so my advice is to own that, right? To have those open-ended conversations and to own the fact that maybe, hey, I should have reached out and I didn't, or I tried to reach out and it failed. But I'm here to say I'm trying again. Okay. And I want you to help me, hold me accountable in my action, to do so. And again, it's that showing up and being real and kind of owning wherever the, past mistakes or, not reaching out happens to be, but just owning that and, reapproaching the situation. All of that's okay. There's no rules in place stopping you from doing that.
But there's another component. There is, I just want to share a quick story about that
Yeah.
in asking for help. There is the awareness, listening to your body or people around you, awareness that you need help. Then who can I reach out to get that help? And then the third part of that triad is pulling the trigger, because you can be aware, you can have an idea of who to go to, but if you never pull the trigger, it's as if you're never aware of it. I had a situation where I became acquainted with a business and they never actually hired me. It was an interview. 6 months later, they wound up calling me when they were in crisis because they knew they needed help. Things were changing, but they were being cost conscious or what have you. And by the time I arrived, it was too late. Now we were able to recover from that. But talk about all the wasted time and the stress on the people of not pulling the trigger soon. So be mindful. If you believe you need help, don't wait too long.
Yeah, that's a really great story because, you talk about opportunity cost and back to what we said previously in terms of kind of two ways to go about things, right? You either learn over the course of time through trial and error and through experience. And when you're in a situation, you can find somebody that will give you not only the advice and the support and the tools that you need to make that change happen or to address the particular situation in a much faster, clearer, concise way, or you can take the time because you're trying to potentially save some money. You can take the time and try to navigate that yourself. But back to your point, there is opportunity cost in that, and I'm glad to hear that ultimately ended up working out favorably. But just the opposite of that happens as well. It would be not a surprise to me to learn that in that similar situation, 6 months was kind of the death sentence of that particular business or maybe business unit. Certainly, there was probably some stress on people that
Mhm.
ultimately resulted in some change there, which could be a situation that potentially could have been avoided had they just taken that last step and engaged instead of holding out either hope or just time until there was a real crisis on their hands.
Yeah, I mean, nothing worse looking at people who are deer in the headlight and under stress. I would love to come in when people are saying, I think things are changing. I need somebody now. Those are the perfect people we love to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we get ready to kind of wind this down, Deb, I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about, we've talked a lot about people from the leadership aspect of people asking for help. Maybe we can talk a little bit about how we as leaders can help our people. How can we give better feedback to our team members? How can we go through and engage them in a very meaningful way? Maybe we can talk through some action steps for leaders to take that kind of first step towards really engaging their team, providing valuable feedback in different instances of change. I'd love to get
Mhm.
your takeaway on that.
Yeah, feedback. Either you don't get it and it's crickets. If you ask for feedback and people deflect, you still don't get the information you need. Feedback is a gift, as one mentor told me once before. Feedback should be a positive experience and actionable. People fear it because people just don't know how to give it. And when leaders do give feedback, it's often in the context of a performance review and sometimes negative, and it's an event wrought with just being very anxious. I have come to learn from somebody that used to work for me, and now I carry this lesson forward. One, feedback should be a positive experience. And two, it needs to be actionable. But I don't think we've given people a framework. And so here's how to have a successful feedback session. Deliver information on what you should continue doing, which plays to your strengths. What should you start doing, which, if you add on to what is already a strength, will elevate you in terms of performance? And finally, what should you change? Because it may not be an issue now, but it may detract from what you're currently doing. So, a quick story to put this in context. I had an amazing food safety subject matter expert to me, sought out leader, gave good presentations. And one day he gave a presentation that I watched, and I was taken aback on how well he did. And so when we had a one-to-one, I asked this person, how do you think it went? First, giving them the opportunity to assess. And they said, well, I think it went fine. I think my information was good. They asked a lot of questions. And I said, can I give you some feedback? Often ask permission just to get people ready. And he said, sure. And I says, well, first of all, you should continue to deliver the amazing content. You are the subject matter expert. That's your strength. Keep going. Continue to do what you do. To which the person said, thank you. And I says, here's something you need to start doing. This time, when you gave the presentation, you were standing up. Normally, you sit down. When you stood up, your energy was so much bigger. Like right now, I'm standing, my energy is high. Because your energy was high, people were leaning into you and waiting to ask the next question. So continue to deliver the information, but always stand up, even if you're delivering it in the comfort of your office. That's your source of energy. And he says, oh, wow, I never realized that. Great. Keep standing. And then I said to him, I said, I don't know if you notice this, but you might want to change this. When you speak, sometimes you have this habit of like sticking your hand in your back pocket, like just checking to see if your wallet is there. Once, twice is not a big deal, but you do it a lot. I don't know if you noticed that. And this person said, I didn't know. I said, it's not a big deal, but somebody might pick up on it and it could detract. Perhaps hold a pen or pointer in your hand just to ground you a little bit. What do you think about that? And they says, oh, wow, thank you for pointing that out. I can change that. And the person went on not only to continue to be a great subject matter expert for my organization, but ultimately, he was sought out as a global leader to be a subject matter expert because feedback was positive and actionable. And and this is the person that told me about feedback, how to deliver it this way. It is so powerful and it can make feedback positive and not such a scary experience.
Yeah, I really love that, and a fantastic story to illustrate it as well. I think you touched on something that a lot of leaders struggle with, and that's just the fact of actually having these one-on-ones, scheduled and regular, right? How often is it a challenging situation from a team member standpoint? Because to your point, it's an anxious time because when's the last time we had one of these? And more than likely, I'm going to get told all the things that I'm not doing well versus leading with the things that people are doing well and having these one-on-one conversations much, much more frequently than somebody would think that they should. So oftentimes I know I would spend a tremendous amount of time kind of management by walking around. That's one of the ways that I learned how to do things. And for me, that was, again, a game changer because it allows you opportunities to have informal one on ones with people throughout the day, throughout the course of, the month, the quarter, the year. And the more times that you can do that, the easier it becomes, where it's not an event, so to speak, where you have to sit down and prepare for, but you can drop these different nuggets of, engaging with people and giving them appropriate feedback at all different points in time. And yes, you should still have documented one-on-ones and, sit down performance evaluations with people, but, you know, doing a combination of both of those things could be very, very powerful in your organization. And I would highly encourage you, if you're not already doing both an informal one-on-one with your people and a formal one, that is a spot for you to start today.
No, it's very valuable. And I even just provided did a solo episode today. In addition to that, when you do have these one on ones, feedback is really important. But I give so many tips on make sure also you're in service to your leader, make sure their needs are being met. That's important because once you serve, they can serve you as well. Start the conversation with personal development, then go into strategic and tactical work. So there is so much to be learned about you as an individual managing your people and having one-on-ones, and then the up and coming leaders, how they can best structure it so they can get what they need. So one-on-ones start now if you're not doing it, and that's in the book.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree with you. Deb, for anybody that's interested in learning more about you, getting a copy of the book, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
So, David, just thank you so much for the opportunity just to have this conversation and bring it forward to people. I just make it simple. dropinceo.com, my website, one-stop shopping for the book, for the podcast, for the blog posts, and other resources, and soon my C-Suite Academy for aspiring leaders. One place, all my resources, and just connect with me. I would just love to have a conversation and see how I can help you.
I love that. Thanks so much. And I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. Deb, I really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing all of these resources, sharing more information about your book. As I mentioned, so many great takeaways in there. So again, thank you for taking your time and coming on the Everyday Business Problems podcast.
Thank you again, David.
Thank you so much for listening today. If we brought you any value, please rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. Also, be sure to connect with us on social media by searching @The Chrysler Club. Until next week, I'm your host, Dave Chrysler.